Okay. Next step, I want to work on the frame a little bit. And here is what I want to do. I want to put the fork braces, the head, the fork braces, headset braces back in place, and that means I need to polish this area. And since I don't want to stop in the middle of a part, at least where I can then move to the next step, I will actually do all of it. So there's only this part, this tube, and that tube, and then the rest of this kind of like follows a different process. But I want the races in, so I don't want this surface to be damaged. So what I'm going to do is to sand it down. I've prepared a smallish selection. So the main job here is actually done with a nice and fresh 1200 paper. And I'm now looking at this process to be done dry. And I'm just looking at the problems that are still aware. So I'm starting with the head tube. And I'm careful not to go into the edges too much. And I'm doing the worst, just the worst problems now. Because again, I want to be efficient with my time. Yes, I want a good result, but you know, this is not from a process to become perfect. This is just me lifting the potential with a reasonable amount of effort being made. So do one tube at a time. I'm afraid that I can't really do this dry because it sets too quickly. So let me add some water. What's far more important in my books when you're sanding than focusing on any particular kind of problem areas is to get an overall quality of surface. That means you need to apply your hand, that is the tool, to make your sandpaper smooth together with the sandpaper. You need to move it flat on the item, like so, to create an as even a surface as possible in order to let the highlights be beautiful. And that's obviously not very easy once you have a lot of little nooks and crannies sticking out, like you do on a bicycle frame. So bicycle frames are rather intensive if you don't want to compromise the result. And with result, since I'm obviously polishing this paint afterwards, is the highlight. The result here of this process is the highlight. The highlight is the reflection. And the more straight this will be, the better it looks. So that was the top tube. Now we're going to go with the small tube. Sorry, what am I talking about? With this tube here. And there was a particular issue that I caught on, is here. Don't really know what has caused this, but this is rather three-dimensional, and in order to fix that I need something flat so that I'm sanding on the, just think of it as a flat surface and then there's a little hump. So you only want the hump, so if you go over this, you catch the hump. Let me deal with the connection here. To my remembrance, I have done already a round of rather coarse sandpaper, maybe 600 and 800 already. So now I'm on 1000, which is basically the next step on getting this highlights to line up and the whole thing looking smooth. The look here that we're going for is patina. Well, not rusty patina, but well cared for patina. If that's making sense to you, it makes sense to me. Maybe you just check out the result and then tell me what you think. Now here's a particularly nasty area again, for where the packaging material seems to have pressed into the paint. It's really weird. Can't really explain it other than that. And there we go. So this is as much as I will do. And now we have this one, but that I need to get an 800 first. Let me check, because on the last video you saw a whole lot of nothing because I was working in an area that wasn't in the window of the camera, so I apologize again for that. It. Oh, no, I just do this. That shall be the 800. Now here's something that you should remember when you sand with different grades of paper. The paper sheds little sand corns while you're working with this. And then you might be thinking you're moving forward to a slightly less coarse sandpaper. And then again, you're actually not, because you're like pushing around the old odd pieces of sand corn from the more coarse paper. And that then shows eventually when you're trying to polish. So that's what you should be doing. And in between, before you move to the next paper, you should wash it. So that concludes the 1000. Going to the next one. Sorry, that concludes the 1200, and we're now moving to 1500. The washing has a second effect. You're getting obviously a very nice matte surface that you can see very well, and that gives you the opportunity to see where you might have three-dimensional issues. So always look carefully at your result, and then finding this is just magnificent. All this massive structure that comes out, I love that. So it becomes easier and easier now. I would like to see if you can see the top of the frame now. Yeah, you cannot. Is this actually moving slowly down and down? Wow, so this is so totally out of the picture. It does help to work on your bike while you are looking at it in its natural position. So that means we're looking at the top view, and that's where we see most of it. That's what we see, because that's the way the bike's gonna stand afterwards. So I'm gonna do that first, so that I know that this is given special love from this perspective. So I'm going down the grade, or sorry, I should say up the grade, the less coarser sandpaper, and it becomes easier and easier to do. Because obviously is less and less and less. Okay, I'm going to lay you down. Probably should adjust. Okay. Okay, now here's that moment again where my phone doesn't show me what it's doing. Here we are back. Okay, there we go. Do not think for a moment that you can skip on any of the part of the process, because you're just not doing yourself a favor. There's something that a certain tool can do, and you think you're gonna do the job of a 240 job, a 240 sandpaper job with a 1500 sandpaper. You're wrong. It's just not gonna happen. It's like 10 times more hard if you want to do that, and you're just not going to get the results. So don't try even. Do it right. Be patient. Each part of the process needs to be done in peace. So this concludes that top. Now I'm going to do the other side, which is the one that I don't see too much. You wonder about my logic here. I'm finding it difficult to be systematic and not forgetting any pieces. Alright? Cardboard and paper don't like each other. And water. So now we're on the side. Clearly important. Two, top tube, most important, of course. So we're on one side. We need to go to the other one in a minute. Other side. For 2000. I think you've seen it the way I'm doing this. So I'm going to cut this and call the sanding for polishing for the front half of the frame quits, and I will get back to you when I'm polishing.